Yeah, we're live, 7:23. That's right. I know the photos LS. But I was actually looking through this because I was thinking about I found some dyno results on an intake test that I did a while ago. And then I remembered that I thought that some of the data was in here. And what got me looking in here was I was also looking at an LS one and going back and looking at if you guys take a look at the video that I put up today on the supercharged LS1, the OG one, the original 5.7, we ran a Vortex supercharger on it and did other tests with it and stuff too. So we showed you so please go take a look at the video. But I showed you what happens to the boost pressure when we install a camshaft, and then what happens also with the change in charge temperature when we run the intercooler, testing it before and after the intercooler to show you what happens, when you run a decent intercooler on there, how much you can drop the temperature. And that's why I always recommend intercoolers when you guys do these, when you do force induction, because dropping 100 or more degrees of charge temperature is a really good deal. And in this case, it's 40 or 50% or whatever. It's a big drop in temperature. So that's always beneficial. I also when I was looking at the data, I also realized that we ran pretty conservative timing in this, and that's because we did run pump gas on it. And I put that we had put because normally we run pump gas and 100 octane mix, but we actually used pump gas with a splash of the Lucas octane booster in it. And it helps, but we were only running like 17 degrees of timing or something. I thought it was over 20. It wasn't on the notes, unfortunately, but that's why sometimes having some of these books where you wrote some stuff down that wasn't in the notes like it should be. That's why when I'm talking to people about dyno testing, I tell them, I try to go over this with Brian Tooley all the time. So like, you guys are getting heavily into dyno testing because they do a lot of development work. And I'm like, look, the critical thing here is that you make sure that while you're doing the testing, every test has proper notes on it. Oh, we changed the throttle body on this one. Oh, we had a problem with the throttle linkage, so we adjusted the throttle linkage. Make sure that you note everything so that when you go back and you want to access the stuff later on, because you always will, when somebody asks you a question about, hey, what did this? Oh, we tested it like this. And then you're just going to try to remember, like I may go to a test where we ran 100 runs because you're fixing things and trying all kinds of new things. And you go backward and then you go forward and stuff. And then to have all of that stuff organized and notarized, in this case, notarized means that we've put the proper notes in it. It's very, very important. And for me, it's ultra important because I go back and use this stuff for videos and other stories and things like that. And so having the data, and then one of the things I didn't do early on that I started doing later, and then now I have to go back and get the old data and then go through it again, find the ones that are the right ones. Because you may have, okay, here we put a Victor Jr. intake manifold on it. Well, there's 6 runs with the Victor Jr. Which one of them is the one that represents this? And when you're looking at it, if you remember from 10 minutes ago or 10 years ago, or even longer, can you still remember exactly what that was? I was really good at that for a really, really long time. But when you get into the thousands and thousands of dyno runs, and especially when you get into, hey, I've run thousands of dyno runs. Well, I've run thousands of 5-liter Ford dyno runs, and I've run a Victor Jr. intake manifold on a 5-liter Ford 30 times. And so there's no way to remember exactly what that was. So if you have dedicated notes, and then now I go in, or I had started going in and making sure that I put notes, and then I had noted on the runs, this is the final run. I would call it final whatever, final Victor Jr., final RPM air gap, final Vortec cam, whatever it is, so that I knew which ones to choose. So I don't even have to go look through all the other ones. We just pick the ones that are going to be right. And then I've even gotten even more clever than that. In the notes, down in the notes section, I go in and put compare to 22 for Vortec versus Vortec with cam. And then you compare to that. It tells you exactly which other one to compare to, so that when you're trying to get, hey, we want to check the what is the charge temperature? What happened when we went with a camshaft? What happened to boost? You know exactly which ones to run. And this is important. If you only ever did one test or even one series of tests on your motor, pretty easy to remember what happened. But after 1,000, it gets more difficult. But the thumbnail that I have up, and we'll take a look at that. You can see the thumbnail that I have up is this. Get out of there. So this is a dual plenum LS intake manifold. You'll notice right off the bat, it has two different kinds of throttle bodies. One of them's an MSD, one of them's a fast. Big plenums. These are actually fairly good sized runners. If you were to zoom in really close, you'd see those kind of squinch down. This is a cathedral port application. I have similar lower manifolds for LS3 and even LS7. You can see this one has, those aren't even very big injectors. Those are only 36-pound injectors in that one. But we have a connection back at the back. We have plenty of, ample runner length. So this thing makes, pretty good power and stuff. And that manifold worked out really well. It's another of the ones that I used so that we could change the runner length and, do all kinds of testing. That manifold worked very well. And it worked very well. It worked even better when we did it as a, the LS3 one worked very good. And so did the LS7. When I did the LS7, because this is way back, this was easily 10 years or more back. But when I did the LS7 version, we didn't have a lot to compare it to. I mean, there weren't, when I did this manifold, there weren't a lot of like aftermarket LS7 manifolds. There was the fast and there was an MSD, there was a stock one, and maybe you guys were doing ported stock ones or whatever. And so when I did this one on the LS7, it picked up, quite a bit of power. It was kind of a good deal. But that intake was cool. And then when I was going through and searching all this stuff, in that group of stuff was another cross ram that we did that had that Dynatech fuel injection on it, that had the injectors inside what looked like Weber carburetors, but with the injectors inside of those. So Tom made a prototype manifold for those. It was a cross ram. It was very cool. It looked good, and it made made good power. Like this one did very well too. Obviously, when in doubt, like I put in the start, when in doubt, go big on the plenum. It's not going to hurt anything. And then go big on the throttle openings, because it's on the dyno. We don't really care about drivability. It makes me wonder on this, in looking at this thing, how drivability would be with two. These are both 90 millimeter, 92 millimeter throttle bodies. Two of those, I wonder how the drivability, how snappy, how responsive this thing would be. If you think about two of them, two of the throttle bodies together, you're like, that's a lot of throttle opening. So it'd be interesting to see. I would like to have this in something where you had to drive it around. And especially having that much throttle opening versus, if you had something that was a mild combination with a mild cam in it and you were just trying to drive it around, I don't think you'd use that manifold for that application. But with enough runner length, obviously you could. So that if worked very well, and I still have it. I think I have it sitting around somewhere. We've run it on a bunch of things, because if I have something we could test it, that means I can test it in different runner lengths, and we can try things and go, hey, look, this one, if we want to make big power on top, we can go ahead and put the short runner stuff on there. And if we want more torque, we can add that. And we want a good power curve, average power curve, we can kind of do that. Plus, let's face it, it looks unique. It looks cool. Well, let's see what you guys got going on. But the other thing I was looking at on this, and I went back, this was the first book that I ever wrote. This was the 5-liter Ford stuff. But I was going back and looking at, first of all, I was looking at Richard that had hair. That was interesting. That was quite a while ago. That was when I first started at West Tech, I think. I think that this was, that photo is from like 93 probably. But I was looking at I was interested in the intake manifold test, because I ran an intake manifold test, and I think I even ran it supercharged. I ran an intake manifold test where we tested like a Cobra, a GT40 and a Cobra, and a couple of different boxes, and a Celine, and the truck manifold, and various things. And I even tested a modified Cobra one where they extended where they cut off the back of the plenum, shortened the runners, went in and milled the runners, and then extrude hone ported them, and then welded on spacers to extend the plenum to add more plenum volume. And it was a lot of work. And I was going back because I wanted to look and see what kind of power gains we got. And it looks like 20 at 6,200, which seems like, compared to just an off-the-shelf GT40. Both of the lowers reported, and this one lost, but that one lost a fair bit of torque down low. The Celine did pretty good. The box intakes did okay at the very, very top, but as always, they lost a bunch down low. I would kind of like to revisit that. A lot of that testing was done back when we were using the factory ECU. And so I don't know how 100% optimized it was, but I'd like to go back and see. So let's see what you guys got going on. More dual plenum madness. Yes, 1 liter Mafia. If I upgraded the stock truck intake, I would want the Trailblazer S for an engine stand. Do you have any idea how many engines you run on the dyno? I don't. I've never stopped to add all of that up. One of the things that happens if I like the 5.3 is a good example. You know, I've put that up, I don't know, 6 or 8 times now. Some of them, like that 4.8, have been up, I'm sure, 20 or 30. And to give you an idea, the motor that Westech used a bunch, the original Gladiator small block, and then now the Gladiator 2, which is a Dart SHP motor, that thing has, it might have 1,000 pulls on it. So it's probably been up, you know, again, 20, 30, 40 times on the dyno just by itself. It's just that they keep running it over and over and over and over again. So in addition to motors that have been up once or twice, there's lots of them that have been up 10 or more times. Thank you for all the valuable content you provide us with. Love the data. Just pulled a 2002 4.8 and 120,000 miles. That's a low mileage one, man. That's a good one. That's not even half of its life. What 650 do you recommend for a low RPM 4x4? A Brawler is good. They're not as good as they used to be. I mean, the quality is still good. It's just that they're more expensive now, but that's a good carburetor. Admiral wants to know if anybody's done any business with quantum fuel systems. Yeah, and these runners were big. I think that these were, I want to say these were 2-inch runners. Do a plug range horsepower test. Yeah, spark plug. Yeah, we've been down that road. Julius, what's up? Getaway, so you've been out since the Alex Taylor video? It's good to have you back, man. I'm way too active in this chat. How do I look for your books? Yeah, Getaway. If you Google the name, I have some. I have some in stock. I have a few of them that I've separated them from the other stuff, so I could sign those. And if you're interested in one of those, I was showing your Hemi book to my brother. He thought you were the guy from Pink's. I get that occasionally. Rich Christensen, he's way more famous. The guy has the index plugs. There's probably something wrong with the combustion chamber, something bad with the combustion chamber head in general. Usually it's a piston problem. It's a piston interference problem with a dome. We see that a lot on big block Chevys, but on some small blocks too. You got to notch the dome a little bit and then index the plug so that it's oriented properly so that it doesn't hit something, but not for power. Often wonder why not customize your intake manifold to fit 2 stock throttle bodies rather than buy a bigger aftermarket single throttle body. Why not customize a stock intake? Is that what you're saying, to fit 2 stock throttle bodies? Or you're talking about my throttle bodies that I do? I do with bigger throttle bodies because bigger is better. Quite honestly, in all of these, I don't remember any that I've tried where we didn't probably have enough of 2 stock size throttle bodies. Like on the LS, if you had 290s, that's enough to feed a lot of power. You still need to revisit the Big Bang. Yep. A 7-bar setup. Yeah, that's wishful thinking. We need a 5.3 LT engine to blow up. Getting the fuel to that is going to be the problem. Try to get Engine Masters to do it for your episode. A 4-bar would be more than enough. There's no way that it gets to 45 pounds of boost. I'm stating that right now. I'm the same guy that stated that. I don't think it's going to get to 30 pounds. Is Lisa? Wait, no, she's here. Is there a cast iron 6.2? No. Customize the stock intake manifold to fit 2 stock throttle bodies, especially when you said throttle bodies are free. They basically are. I mean, we throw away a lot of stuff. It would be hard to do on the composite manifolds. Plastic welding can be difficult. So, Admiral, how much are you betting? $50. It's not gonna go more than 45 pounds. So with the Super Richie intake, do you see any recordable data when not using the rear pipe to connect the plenums? Yes, having not joining the plenums definitely has an effect on the power curve. Yeah, if you had that 6-liter that I had and you ran 4-bar, that'd be over 2,000 horsepower. Super Richie twin M90 intake, you could do that, but it's still next down into the going into the M90 is still really small. That needs to be bigger and it needs to be ported properly. I think just 105 on an M90 would be more than enough. What stock LS cam would you put in a 5.3 ported 862 heads? Joseph, take a look at the video that I did on all of the stock cams. You'll see that all of the factory cam and LS6 cam is a pretty good cam. It makes good power, but you'll see that all of the stock cams, other than the LM7 cam, are going to lose power down low. So you're definitely going to trade power. You get a lot more power up top, but you are going to lose some. Richard, have you done a valve size upgrade on Gen 6 big block head? No, you wouldn't do just the valve though. You'd have to do the guide too. And I don't think that the flow rate of the port is limited by the valve size. To make a plastic welder, I've seen it. I've seen the soldering iron, but it's and I've used. We used to do plastic welding kind of. We used to use PTEX on the bottom of skis when you'd scratch your skis on rocks and stuff, and you would fill those with those and then scrape them and then wax them and go through all that. Pretty sure Cleese was running 40 pounds on their 6-liter on not on a stock bottom end. He wasn't. I bet a 6-liter will live over 2200 flywheel. I don't see how it can. The only way that that could happen is if you took all the timing out of it. You might be able to get that kind of boost if it's not making any power. Used to be popular down here to run twin roots blowers. One would be mounted on top of the other. Yeah, so they'd be compounding then. It would be better to have them be side by side because then you'd get more flow, especially if you like on M90s, it would be not good to mount them one on top of the other. It'd be much better to have them mounted side by side so they're both blowing into a common plenum. But you can do that. I've seen them mounted on top of each other. You got stackability. Aluminum 6-liter forged flat tops, valve release, ported 706s. I don't know how much porting you've done on there. Summit Stage 3 truck cam. That sounds like it could be over 500 horsepower flywheel. I have a plastic welder. It's been very handy. I have fixed a lot of bumpers and stuff, but not with plastic welding. Just drill holes in them and then zip tie them. Oh, so Admiral, you're saying not only is it going to go 4-bar, but 4-bar and 2,000 horsepower? I don't see how a stock bottom end can go to 2,000, but maybe it can. I've not tried running. 30 pounds is the most I've ever run on the engine dyno, I think, is on that Big Bang motor. But I've never tried like coming way down in timing and running the boost up. So I've never tried running 40 or 50 pounds of boost and then 10 degrees of timing, let's say. I've never tried that. How's the poll going? I don't have that yet. Good intake tape ported 799 heads, Doberman LS2 or LS6. The LS6 would be my choice there, or the Fast. Big Bang 6-liter 30 psi on nitro. Man, that'd be a lot of fuel. Been researching the Holley EFI from her 3800. Trans control seems to be an issue. Contemplating the Dominator system and trying to run the front wheel drive 4T60E is like a Ferrell 60. Okay. The Dominator will control that. I don't know how that works, though. I don't ever do trans control on it. I just got here. I think I missed the premise with the thumbnail. Yeah, we were just talking about adjustable intake manifolds and stuff. Have you ever run individual throttle bodies? Yes, many, many times on LS stuff. Those videos are up. One thing I would do different on the Big Bang motors, I think on the last time, I think we ran the TEA 317 heads, and I wouldn't do that again. If I'm going to run, if it's going to go more than 1,500 horsepower, I think we're getting to a problem where I'd be worried about the heads. I don't think that they have the deck thickness. 40 psi and 10 degrees of time. Do you think that'd make more power? That's the thing. I don't know. I know that every time we take timing away on a turbo motor, it makes less power. I just don't know when we start getting, like I said, I haven't run those kinds of boost levels. Um, I just, I don't know. I've never tried it. I don't know because if you strip timing out of it, it's going to be safer. But then I don't know how much more boost you can add. Maybe I would talk to Nelson or one of those guys about it. Guys that have run, lots of boost on them. Kevin, you've got a 6-liter stock heads with a 220, 222 cam. I have a set of 243 heads to install. Those would be better than the 317s. How much torque for towing? Are you asking me what your peak torque is, or that combination will work well, and it'll work better with that 243 head on? You think you're doing the Nazi salute? No, that wouldn't be right. That would not be good. Would you port the LS6 intake? Can you get much done by porting the LS6 intake? How about a 2.3 Ford test? I would like to do an SVO turbo motor, but that's down the list. Struner, I don't know what thumbnail you're talking about there. Rusty, yeah, the one that we were talking about, or the one that you were talking about, came after the Iron Duke. I don't really have too much interest in that one. I do have interest in the Iron Duke one though. Just I don't know, because everyone hates it. The Iron Duke is a 2.5 pushrod with a big block Chevy head. That motor wishes it had a big block Chevy head. A project I'm getting back to, a small motorcycle, 250 cc's twin. Okay, a small turbo or small supercharger. Are you going to be able to find something that's small enough to feed that little of power? A degree of timing versus a pound of boost. We know which one wins that. A pound of boost always makes more power than 1 degree of timing, no matter where you're at. But that wouldn't be the trade-off, because 20 pounds of boost and you take away 20 degrees of time, pretty soon you're going to be at 0 degrees of timing, and it's not going to make power. So that's not a good trade-off, and it wouldn't be a 1-to-1 thing. It would be a 5 or 6-to-1 thing. Anyone seriously doing this kind of testing on an LTA yet? Yeah, guys have run those before. I'm guessing the 6-liter is going to lift the head at 35 psi. I don't think it would do that. I think it'll go past that. We were using, especially if I use an aftermarket head that has a thicker deck, we have an MLS head gasket on, and I had the CA 625 head studs on it. So I don't think you're going to stretch those head studs. RHP 31 would work on a 250. How much power does a 250 make? Cleveland head for the 300, or LS heads too. We need an inline 6 with Hemi heads. Somebody, I went by it though. Somebody was asking about Dart and stuff. Julius, is that Aussie one? Is that a crossflow head? People cut up 302 Boston Cleveland heads for a Ford 6. I don't think you'd cut those heads up. I think you'd cut up like open chamber 4V Cleveland heads, the ones that nobody cares about or that less people care about. Was the 84 Indy 500 pace car that was a Fiero built with a Super Duty 2.5 Iron Duke? I have a buildup on that, I think, in one of the books. The Super Duty stuff is expensive and hard to find, I think. Recommended crank and rods for an Ellis making 1500. Trying to think of what Brian was using on their stuff. I want to say a Dragon Slayer is what they were using. I've seen people adapting LS heads on a small block Chevy. I've never seen that before. I don't think I've seen that on a small block. I know there's talk of people doing that on Fords, you know, because they copied them. Oh, we need a poll. Why didn't you guys tell me? Why didn't somebody remind me? So what video do we just put? Oh, the Vortec. No, that's not it. Okay, is a dual plenum intake a non-starter because of the problem with running two throttle bodies? So, or two, having to run two throttle bodies, whether drive-by-wire, drive-by-throttle body, or drive-by-cable. Does having to source two throttle bodies and figure out a way to run them make a dual plenum manifold not really a viable deal? Does it stop people from buying them? I know what my thoughts are. Yes. Come on. Stupid camera. Get out of here, stupid cat. Raven, why is it says controversy? Does that mean conversely? Is that what you're trying to say? Or is there actually a controversy around your statements here? Do 6-bolt heads actually help with those tiny bolts over a 4-bolt head, not lifting heads being both half-inch studs, CA625s? I didn't run half-inch I ran 7/16 CA625s. I don't know. I'd like to see somebody creating problems with a 1/2 inch CA625 head stud, like stretching that and having it not be a detonation issue or something like that, just from power. Do you ever test two-stroke engines? I have two-stroke motorcycle engines, but not on the dyno. 8 expansion chambers? That's a lot. Yeah, I would think that the issue with putting LS heads on a small block Chevy would be a bit of work. Does anybody know if it's all right to put an HDI distributor on a C-Ray 454 7.4 liter boat that originally has the Thunderbolt 4 system? Does anybody know? I don't know what a Thunderbolt 4 system is, so you guys are welcome to answer that. No 300 crossflow heads in Australia. Okay. Is anyone 3 printing intake manifolds? The prototype stuff, but is somebody doing production ones? Ivan, you can't speak anymore? Doesn't Dart make a small block Chevy block that you can run LS heads on intake manifold on? Well, but the top of it is LS though. Only the bottom of it is. It's a hybrid. It's an LS block, but with a small block Chevy bottom end. Can't remember what it's called, but the Turbo Z engine you tested was cool. Can't wait to see the RB. Yep. Dual M90s in the garbage, twin turbos instead. It would definitely make more power. But I can tell you from a viewership standpoint, if I put 2 turbos on an LS, people would yawn. If I put 2 M90s on an LS, people would love it, even though the 2 M90s would make way less power. Guys that put LS heads on Fords, yeah. Because the bore spacing is close enough. Twin turbos feeding twin M90s. And then you have to have nitrous there. Then it would be all pro street. Dart was purchased. Think the quality's no good now? How's our poll doing? Only got 38 votes. Come on, guys. It's been 5 minutes. 74% are saying no. They think people will be willing to put the 2 throttle bodies. I know. I LS swapped the Dodge distributor. Build a turbo nitrous setup. Then you have to run nitromethane in it too, right? Because then you got to get all the stuff. So everyone's throwing out their recommendation for the HEI. If I have a twin scroll turbo, do I have to use a divided flange? You don't have to. Twin turbos feeding twin throttle bodies. That's what Matt did. I thought that Matt put a the Holly cross rammy thing on there with the dual throttle body deal that I tested. I thought he put one of those on the motor that he was doing with twins on it. He's smart enough to program the ECU to use 2 drive-by-wire throttle bodies, I'm sure, because he does a lot of stuff with the factory ECUs. I have a 408 LS with 600 horsepower. What's the best bang for buck supercharger I can get? How much power are you trying to make? If you're already starting off at 600 NA, that's pretty good. But I'm assuming you don't want a 700 horsepower supercharger. And you desire to do a 2JZ or an RB26. Not an RB26 or a 2J because they're really expensive. I would do the alternatives of those. I have an RB25, which I am going to run. Jacob. So you're going to need 1,000 horsepower supercharger. So you're going to need like a YSI Vortec or a D1SC would get you there on a Pro Charger. Or if you want to go a positive displacement, you could get the TVS 2650. I'll be there to see some RB footage. I'm excited about doing the RB. Looking forward to the 4.8. Destarting gasoline, then switch. That's what I'll do because I want to run. I want to run gas and I want to run methanol, and then start adding in the nitromethane. Bought my 2J for $3,200 in 2010. Sold it last year for $6,500. Nice. See, now if you could have just bought a few hundred of those, that'd have been good, huh? Trying to get an RB20 off my buddy to try to test. Been looking at NA 2Js, Atlas stuff. You can still go to the wrecking yard and get the are they the 1Js out of the Lexus and stuff? What are the difficulties of nitromethane? One of the difficulties is getting enough fuel flow because you have to flow 8.5 times the amount of gasoline for the stoic number to be accurate. Oh, the Lexus has a 2J. It's just an NA 2J. Whatever happened to David's ported heads? What heads did David's never ported heads for me. He ported one head for the 2.2 Chrysler, but I haven't run anything on the 2.2 Chrysler. Admiral, I don't know what your statement means. I don't know what you mean by what you can make with basic mods. What does that mean? What all of the V8s are the same price. So it doesn't matter which one you get, they're all the same. So you just pick the most powerful one of those that you could find, whatever that is. And then what are you allowing for modifications? Is it turbo a modification? Is it injectors? Is it, what level? Because the amount of power that you can get from it is going to be dependent upon the things that you do to it. Scary part is you can't see the flames when you're on fire. That's most alcohol-based fuels are like that. Have you ever tested compounding a supercharger and turbo? Yeah, the video is already up. We did it with the 3800, and I've done it with a 4.6 4-valve 03 Cobra motor with the guys from HP Performance. Yeah, the Lancia Delta Integrale, their Group B rally car. It wasn't in the 60s though. It was in the 80s. Richard, I'm talking find a 3 or 4 cylinder. So you would find a Honda 4-cylinder, a B or a K series Honda, which is going to be the most powerful one. You're not going to find an S2000, but you certainly could find some other kind of K series, because you're not going to find anything else that makes, 200 horsepower out of a 4-cylinder, I don't think. That would be the most powerful one you could get. Yeah, Eric, that's the other thing is nitromethane is not cheap. So judging by my budget is E85 that I go get from the local gas station because it's cheaper than regular gas. I like that. But nitromethane, and especially when you're first learning with it, you might go through multiple hundreds of dollars worth of gas. Admiral, I'm still not seeing how that's any different than all of the stuff that I've already done. Solid power from the nitromethane, but they ran out of injector. That's what I was talking about. You start multiplying it out 8.5 times. I mean, that's a huge injector just to start out with 350 horsepower, and you're probably going to double it, or more. So you have to flow a lot of fuel for that. Think about K swapping my Grand Am. That'd be good. Our Honda guys running big displacement strokers. They do 2.7 liter stuff, I know. Did you guys get a 4A Toyota engines? Yeah, we did, but I don't think you're going to see too many of them in the wrecking yards. Are there any plug-and-play harnesses for K series? Does anybody know? I thought my buddy Jimmy got a K series harness from somewhere that he's using in his NSX. 2.7 turbo versus an RB26 would be interesting. A 2.7 turbo what? Let's see, 12 blower on a 4 AGZE. Oh, yeah, but a 2.7 stroker Honda is like doing everything to the motor. And then an RB26 is not anything to the motor. So I don't think that's really a good combination. That's like building a dedicated motor and then comparing it to a stock one. That's not really my idea of a. The guys that are doing those stroker ones are not doing turbo ones. They're doing NA ones that they're running with nitromethane. So they're doing all motor 2.7 stuff that makes a ton of horsepower. Have you done any work on the 2.5 turbo Skyactiv G motors? I have not. I don't ever even remember running one of those on a chassis dyno. I know I've not run them on the engine dyno. Eric's out. I'd like to see testing on the supercharger from the Mazda Millennium. I don't remember the last time I saw one of those in a wrecking yard. I do like the 4AGs. Those are cool. Get a lot of those come in. Eric from Westech tunes a lot of those on the chassis dyno. A lot of them with stack injections. They're really cool. I like the way those look. They have good eyeball. We had reliability issues with AEM on GSXR engines back in my SAE days. Cool. An M90 for every cylinder. 8 blowers. It would just be good to run 2 of them. That would be enough. The internet would be happy with that. Just packaging M8 M90s would be difficult. It would look like the engine base of those pulling tractors with all the different motors angled different ways. I haven't tested zooming headers, and I want to do that on the nitromethane motor. Roush M90 version would be cool. Not many people know about it. What is the maximum horsepower you've seen on an NA 454 without stroking it? Are you talking about the most I've run that I've put together? I've never put together a 454 to try to run it really high and make it a race motor. I've never done that. Guys have come in, but I don't honestly remember somebody staying at that displacement and trying to maximize that power output at that displacement. Yeah, I think Engine Masters did do a Zoom. Freiberger did do a Zoomies test. I remember. I might even have their data. Just 2 of the M90s on a 4.8 would be good. I love Garage 54. Those guys are great. Yeah, just spinning the blowers would take a lot. Although if you've got 8 of them, you don't have to spin them very fast. I want to see if it can break the stock bottom end LS with just M90s. It probably would just break the crank from trying to drive all those. Can you do a VQ35DE second gen? It's real specific. The VQ35 that only came front wheel drive from the Maxima. It holds the fastest NA record in a 350Z. 100 horsepower per liter out of a 1.6 is not hard. I mean, the Honda factory motors came like that. So it gets harder as you go up in displacement, though. I do see Nissans at the yard, but I don't have a way to hook them up to the dyno, though. And a way to run them, and I'm sure that they have variable cam timing and yada, yada, yada. So I did twin blowers on a 4.8. There's nothing saying that you couldn't upgrade from the M90s to something bigger than that. Ivan, you're doing one hour per day working out. That's good. I haven't touched weights in I don't know how long, since pre-COVID. I need to. I have been running. I ran today. So I could do a test on the 4.8 with twin M90s and then put one Kenny Bell on it. I'm going to close out our poll at 70% saying no. They think that dual PLENUM, dual throttle body, that's pretty good. That still works. I got my movie popcorn. All right, Julius, you're out. We got 2 more minutes, and then we're all out. Have you done a twin charge setup? Yes, a couple of times. Turbo feeding the blower. Off the shelf parts for LS or big block Chevy can get 100 horsepower per liter. A V6 from a 91 GMC 1500. Is that a 4.3 liter? I know, Ricky. I'm anxious to see the 396 on there too. Ever added a third compound turbo to a twin turbo setup? No. I have not. Tom, I don't think that's, I think it's just complicated, more complicated tubing wise, but I don't think it's any more terrible of an idea than compounding the turbos. I'm of the opinion on an LS motor that you don't need to run compound turbos because you can make all of the power that you want. I mean, for 99% of the people, you can just put a turbo on there and a cam and do the thing that you need to do. Unless somebody's looking for something really, really specific where they want to run 2,000 horsepower and they want to have immediate boost response, and then they're trying to team that up with a compound setup. Normally, the gas engines like that don't run real high pressure ratios. It's just not necessary. It's a much better idea on diesel stuff. The dyno sheet that came from my friend's Kenny Bell for his 03 Cobra was nuts. A 200 horsepower loss at 10 pounds. Are you saying that the blower cost 200 horsepower at 10 pounds? Because that's not accurate. And 400 horsepower loss at 18 pounds, 500 at 22 pounds. The blower doesn't cost anywhere near that much power. I know because I've seen blower dyno, especially of Kenny Bell stuff, lots of blower dyno stuff on Kenny Bell stuff. And there's nothing that they've ever run that would be anywhere near a 500 horsepower loss. You're talking about that's getting up into fuel motor range. If that's what you're talking about. A 300 horsepower loss would be like a TBS blower running at 20 or more PSI at 20 or more 1,000 RPM. And, you know, you're trying to max it out in engine speed, in blower speed, and in flow and in pressure. And so it's going to take a lot. It's going to have a lot of parasitic loss. But the Kenny Bell stuff is not going to be up anywhere near where you're talking about, especially not at 10 pounds. Yeah, Struner. It's not 500 horsepower loss. Not on any Kenny Bell. Not on any blower that I've seen tested, other than when you start driving some of the really big, like top fuel blowers. They're going to be way beyond that. I remember reading the story of the guys that were spinning the blowers having to step up because they were using not electric motors because a 500 or 1,000 horsepower electric motor is a gigantic size thing. But they were using, this guy was using, this one guy that was doing these blowers, that was reconditioning the blowers for Top Fuel. He had a 351 and he had to step up in the engine that he was doing and make it more powerful because it only made 500 horsepower. It wasn't enough to spin the blowers like they needed. Excessive. So you're saying that they're losing 500 horsepower going from crank horsepower to wheel horsepower? That's also not accurate. Even if you had 20% drivetrain loss, that's still only 300 horsepower. And 20 is might not be an accurate number. It depends on what your drivetrain is. Yeah, excessive. You should those numbers he's throwing around are not right. 351 is easier to find. A 289 and maybe a 302 in my area. We have 351s in the wrecking yard in the trucks and stuff, trucks and vans, and they're hydraulic roller stuff. At least the later ones are. Oh, dogs are on patrol. One of the puppies is using a scary voice. One more minute. Get him, Bruno. Get him. Oh, 351 V6. Yeah, that would be different. I have never seen one of those. Never in all my born days. And not Jason Bourne. But on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will be back tomorrow.